Today I'm going to show you how to paint cat's fur using watercolours, and this is a continuation from my live YouTube video on how to paint a stunning cat's eye. So let's get them brushes wet, shall we, and let's get started. Now off camera I decided to paint the other eye, working with all the usual details, the same colours as I did before whilst live, by adding those finer details and those highlights within the eye, just to give it that bit of sparkle, and then also painting that nose. Now I do have a video here on YouTube on how to paint a cat's nose. I'll pop in the link down below for you, okay? But you have to consider the tonal values and also the shape of that nose, not forgetting those very fine stipply details. And then to finish that off with the highlights over the top. We're going to start off by using a milky mix of lamp black and burnt umber. And all I want to do is go over my pencil marks using this colour. And this is because we'll be adding wet and wet washes over the top, and the pencil underneath will just simply wash away. I'm going to use a size 8 synthetic brush to apply the wet and wet washes. The first thing to do is wet the paper nice and gently. Try not to rub it too much because you don't want that paint shifting on the top of those pencil marks. And do this probably at least a couple of times. Then we can start off with phthalo blue, lamp black to a watery consistency. Now you probably think, why am I using blue on the nose? Well, when you look carefully at that reference photograph, you can see a bit of a sheen of blue there, can't you? Now I need a really rich colour for the background. And this is going to be the Indian red, lamp black and the burnt umber. Do note that these layers are really watery as well. I don't want to go too dark too soon, you know, because if you do and you make some mistakes along the way, they're very difficult to fix. So keep it nice and pale to begin with, just the way you would traditionally normally use watercolours. Then we'll go for lamp black, burnt sienna and a little bit of burnt umber, and add that over the top as well, but leaving plenty of gaps in between. Now do note when you look at that reference photograph, you can see where it gets a little bit lighter towards the pale part of the fur on the face. So just make some notes where they are. Now once it's nice and dry, I'm going to use my replicator brush, the replicator, with its wobbly end. But it still works really well. Now this is made from a throwaway brush, okay? If you want to learn how to make one of these, I'll pop a link down below and also to the top right hand corner of the screen. Now this will create more than one line in one go. I remember the days years ago when I used to tie two pencils together when I used to have to write lines in front of a teacher. But this is really useful. Yes, I did that, I know. This is really useful just for getting the first layer of detail on the top of that paper. I wouldn't use this for the top layer because you find that the lines are too parallel and it makes it look as if it's been combed, which it hasn't, has it? You need to make sure that you overlay those lines as well. So elongated crisscrosses in places. When you get to the nose, use some very tiny marks and also a barely loaded brush. Because if your brush is too overloaded, you find your marks are going to be far too large, far too wide. When you work towards the top of the eyes, you find that the hairs are really long there. Taper those hairs out by starting from the inside of the face and then pulling away as you go towards that background, using gentle curves, overlapping again as well. Then we'll lightly soften that down using our size 8 brush again. But the brush needs to be damp, not soaking wet, and keep washing that brush out as well, otherwise you're moving paint from one place to another. Gently blend where it's needed, but again because of the pigments we've used, you find it won't blend that easily, but that's not a problem. Once it's dry again, go for the lamp black, burnt umber and burnt sienna to a creamy consistency, and then start using a size 00 brush, and this is a brush which I tend to use for the majority of my work. The next layer of detail, work with your size 00 brush again, but look very carefully at that reference photograph. Look at the curves, the angles that you can see around the nose. And this is also where the hairs change direction quite a lot. You find that around the top of the eye, where you've got the longer lines again, and below the eye, where the lines are very short to begin with, but get longer and curvier the more to the left hand side you go. Then you've got the darker areas of the eye, just the outside part of the eye. This will really set the eye within the socket, which we need to do. Just don't overload that brush and use the very tip of the brush to do so. Then carry on building up the darker layer over the top, but do allow some of that lighter layer to show through, which includes that wash colour in the background as well. Don't forget that. When you get to the nose, make sure that your brush has hardly got any paint on it whatsoever, because you want these marks to be really fine. Now I'm painting this more detailed on the left hand side rather than the right hand side. Just to give you an idea on the slow progression from the first layer of washes all the way through to the final detailed layers for the left hand side of the face. But if you're following this and you want to paint this yourself, then please go ahead. This is just to show the different layers involved in creating this portrait. Lamp black burnt umber burnt sienna to a milky consistency. I'm still trying to get the top layer on now, even though I've watered it down just a fraction, because normally the very top layers tend to be more of a creamy consistency for me. Grab your size 8 brush again, and once again lightly soften it down, and I mean very lightly. So wash the brush out, give it a tap or two on some kitchen roll before you go to that painting. If you put too much water on the painting, you find it will just blur it all together, and you don't want that. Because then what was the point in doing all this detail work, eh? And once that's dry, go over the top again with your size 00 brush and add some more details over the top where you think it's needed. Look for those darker tones, those really dark areas, and also those lighter areas as well. Opaque white paint. Now this is watercolour. It is a watercolour based one. It's not gouache, it's not acrylic paint or anything like that. Just watercolour white as I've always called it. Now working with white paint can be tricky sometimes. You've got to get the consistency just right. Now I find with this, if you just have just a touch of water, not much, you can maintain a creamy bright consistency. The more water you add to that white paint, the paler that white will dry, the duller that white will dry. So if you find that your white paint is drying too dull, chances are you've got too much water inside it. Work around the face where it's needed. Now again, I'm just working on the left hand side of the face here, as you know. But if you're doing the full portrait, make sure you do it all over, or where it's needed anyway. Look at the curves, look at the shapes you can see, look at those overlapping lines. And take your time around that nose again. Look very carefully around there and see the directions that those hairs go. They're not all in one straight line, are they? Add a few to above the eye as well. And these are pale and also quite long. And then what we can do is go over the top of the white, in places, not everywhere though, with a little bit of watery paint. Take your time. And only go over the white once, just one light pass, one fell swoop. If you keep going over the white paint with some colour, you find the white paint will blur and it will move around. So take your time when you're doing this. As I mentioned, don't do it everywhere. And also change that colour as well for the phthalo blue and the lamp black to a watery consistency. How do you fancy having a go at drawing and painting a cat pen and wash? Tell you what, I'll put a little video to the top right hand corner of the screen for you. I'll see you there.